Yes.
Well, good. Okay. All right. Thank you all for making time today, the last day for the series here, and on a Sunday morning for most of you. So I'll just keep this a little. I wanted to keep it not something that you often kind of get into when you look at the trailhead badges and stuff. So we want to get into some of the additional areas that that we talk about as you go ahead and start working on Agentforce. Some of this may be relevant to something that you might do, or others you can actually maybe something else that you can study on as well. But at some point you may come across this when you're implementing solutions in Agentforce. So wanted to look at how you would actually look at things. By the way, it's not I know the correct answer, this is the exact way you have to do, but this is more to get you guys thinking along these lines, figure out okay, what could be the best practices along these ways, or some things that you should actually keep in mind, as you design solutions, stuff like that, right? Things are evolving quite a bit over the last few months, as you can see, and even with Agentforce 3 release, and a lot of things are happening. So you will see many new things coming up. So okay, some suddenly today there is no specific feature, but few months down the line you might see that specific feature that you wanted has come up. So keep those things in mind as you actually look at when you start working on few things. Okay, so these are some of the topics that we wanted to cover today. First one, I wanted to look a little bit into multi-agent scenarios, a bit on actions and flex credits. I know we had the session on actions, but then a little bit about with respect to pricing. I know we didn't cover anything on pricing yet. I'm not sure if we did so. One topic that is close to heart is tokens. We'll go a little bit into that, and then specifically on MCP, because that is something that I feel that people do not really understand that very well, or maybe but maybe in the context of Salesforce, how do you see it, and stuff like that. Okay. Won't take too much time. Hopefully, in 30-35 minutes, we should be able to wrap this up, and then we can take a break and then pass it to the next session as well from here. Okay. Quick question. I know, many of you have created at least one agent, if you have done the badges, a lot of the trailheads and all that, and maybe more than one agent. But when do you think you will need to create multiple agents? Have you ever thought about it? Any ideas? When would you use a single agent? When would you use a multi-agent? Any thoughts on how you would approach that? Feel free to use the chat. I'll switch to the chat as well. Or if you want to unmute and speak as well. Like I said, we want to keep it a little interactive, and this is how you will actually learn. So so now start applying whatever you have learned. Everybody knows now how to create an agent, and you can create multiple agents. Now the question comes, if you are put into a scenario where you are actually designing or developing things, if the customer is not going to come and tell you create two agents, three agents, things like that, but then you have the flexibility of doing so. Question comes, when should you actually go ahead and decide that I need two agents or multiple agents, or only one single agent will do? Any ideas? Have you thought about those? Feel free. There is no right or wrong here. It's all trying to learn. Okay. Different business use cases, parent, child, company, hierarchical. Okay. Two different tasks. Okay. Okay. Any other answers? Technical troubleshooting. Okay. We will use multiple agents for the different use cases, for different business proposal process. Okay. Okay. Yeah, more or less almost similar areas that I can see that the answers are coming in. Okay. Any other things that you would like to share? Okay. So I would look at it more from when you look at an agent, think of it as a role, right? So primary thing is trying to get the terms correct. So agent is more like it's actually a human person, and you're replacing a human, right? Or a virtual assistant that you call it. So think of it if I get an actual person doing the work, then I'm trying to replace that person to do something. So that's an actual role that you're filling. Okay. When you look at the difference between agent and topics, topics are basically the jobs or the tasks that particular person has to do, or the agent has to do, right? So I'll take a case of maybe an example of finance. guessing many of you know the finance role. Like, so if I have a financial department, maybe the accounts department, I'm sure you must have come across the terms accounts payable and accounts receivable, right? So there's actually two different terms there, and they both under finance, right? Now, if I were to design accounts payable and accounts receivable, the business processes, both being finance, would you create a single agent or a multi-agent? Question to the audience. And Aman, you can decide when to give prices later. Single agent, okay. Multi-agent. Single both comes under finance, okay. Multi, okay. Okay. So, okay. Quite a few have actually said multi, but then any reason why it has to be multi? I know single folks, you don't have to give much answer. Like they say, like, okay, no, it's under one finance department. If multi, why multi? Reason? Different tasks. It will be a little more specific than that, Shraddha. Works around to complete this task. Multi-agents such as many agents that work together or interact to solve problems. Okay. Areas. Yeah. So you need to be like, see, when the customer asks, like, you have to be very, very, how do I say, more clear in terms of, you cannot just say that, okay, they have different tasks, like, or like very vague, ambiguous, you cannot give, right? So how I would look at it is, in true sense, if you look at the actual thing, even though it comes under the finance department, like, what accounts payable does and accounts receivable does are two different areas within finance. Okay. One is actually like, inbound, one is outbound. Okay. Receivable is like, okay, if you have customers and I need to, like, make sure I track revenue that I'm getting from those, getting all those details and stuff like that. Those are the things I actually, like, track as part of accounts receivable. Payable is more to do with, okay, who are the vendors, suppliers that I have that I need to, like, make sure I make the payments, like, from our company perspective, things like that. So even though it sounds similar, but there are two different roles actually within the finance team. So that is when you have to look at it. So if you try to, you can, if you want, under one single agent, but then what happens is there will be a lot of areas, the jobs to be done, like, the topics will actually be very overwhelming, for that. And unless and until there is very similar kind of, like, areas that you can really reuse, like, and that makes sense, like, that you can reuse, you would ideally create as two different agents, at least from my area that I would look at it, at least two different agents. And then you can have, like, so if there is orchestration at some point available, you probably have even a super agent from a finance department saying that, okay, depending on the type of request, if it's an account payable, it will go to the account payable agent. If it's a receivable kind of thing, like if it's basically coming from a customer, they have a question regarding, like, one of the invoices that they need to pay. If that's the case, then automatically it will go to the accounts receivable agent, right? So that kind of things also can happen. So right now in Salesforce, the orchestration and the agent-to-agent handoff directly does not directly sure it's there right now. It probably hopefully in the works. Logesh, I don't know if that is in the roadmap. If I don't know if there's something you can share or not, but hopefully we'll get to see some of these features coming up sooner or later. I know A2A is in the works. But primarily you can create agents right now, and like I said, like, you really have to look at it from that specific thing, like, where, like, okay, this particular agent that I'm creating, is it specific to a particular role? They can have multiple tasks, so don't keep saying, like, okay, they have different tasks. Tasks are always, like, the things, action that happens within those topics. The topics are basically jobs to be done. The jobs to be done by one agent will be drastically different from the other jobs to be done by the other agent, right? So agent one and agent two can have very different jobs to be done. That's probably when you actually say they're two different distinct roles. And it is too much of a burden to, like, overload one single agent with too many topics that can cause latency, cause issues in getting things done. So that's one way to look at it. Okay. Um, so within Salesforce, like let's say you're working with um, uh, agents, and then if you want to look at, okay, how do I now work with multiple agents? So within Salesforce, if you have okay, I have two agents that I need to work with. So some of the ways that you can look at is invocable actions are always available. If you have seen invocable actions, you can use Flow and Apex. You can call that. So if there is action that you have created for another agent and you want to invoke that from within your agent, you probably should be able to do that. And the agent API as well, if you can, the agent API, I know we didn't cover that. I mean, I believe we will probably have a session in future. But when that comes up, you can see it. But there's also a couple of videos available on the developer channel, or Salesforce developers channel, which is slightly easy to understand as well. You can look at how we create headless agents. There's a API documentation available, a good video they've shown how you can use it in Postman as well. You just need to create a connected app, get that configured, and then get the agent details that you want to add that. Then you can easily use that in an agent API calls. Okay, so you can actually integrate or interact between two agents. You can have across Salesforce orgs. So for example, if I have two different Salesforce orgs and if I want one agent to call another agent in another org, that is also possible through the API part. So you can research on these areas. I'm sure there will be more features being released in the near future, which can even be more better. But at least for now, these are things that definitely can help you. And then if let's say you have an Agentforce agent and you want to, interact with an external agent, which is non-sales or Agentforce or non-Salesforce agent, let's say there's a third-party agent that you want. If the external agent is trying to invoke an action within our agent, that you have created inside Salesforce, you can use the agent API as long as the connected app is being used, and you can configure and then you can pass that across. The other way around, if they have APIs exposed from the other external agent, you can actually invoke that from your actions as well. So there are ways you can do that. MCP is definitely one of the options that is upcoming as well. You will see that, and if the MCP is able to downstream go invoke other agents downstream and do something, that is also possible. And both ways, from MCP you can probably even try to trigger a Salesforce agent if it is coming from an internal one. So there are two type of MCP servers that you will see. One that is actually outbound and inbound, depending on where you're implementing the server side, which we will discuss in the last topic. Okay. So these are just some things that you need to consider. I'm not saying this is exactly accurate, but these are some of the things I was thinking of, when I was looking at multi-agent integration. You have to think about orchestration. Sometimes you may or may not need orchestration, but sometimes you may need. But when you do implementations, initially you might think it is simple, but when you start scaling things up, when you look at performance latency and all that, these are some of the things that you will have to think about as part of designing the entire solution. At least few months down the line, when everybody starts working more into actual applications and implementations of agents, that's when you will actually come across some of these scenarios, and you will need to know how to do some of these things. Okay. Okay, I'll go into a couple of other things after this. So I know we've spoken about actions in one of the sessions earlier. So topics, actions for agents. So and then so just wanted to ask here, how many of you guys know the different pricing models for Agentforce? Okay, not many people know. Okay, aware of credits. Okay. Unfortunately, I didn't put the slide. I should have done that. Okay, I thought people would have known. Okay, so I'll just give you a very high level, quick, one sentence answer maybe. So as of now that I'm aware of, there is 3 different pricing models for agents, or Agentforce basically. So one is the conversation based, which was the initial one that got launched, and that is mostly for external facing. If you, and it's good for external facing, but even internal, I think you can apply it for employee agents. I haven't checked that one, but yeah. But it's more conversation based, where you get charged $2 per conversation, and that conversation has to be for 24 hours. So there's some rules behind that. Okay, so that is the old pricing model. Then we heard about the new pricing that came in recently, that is flex credits. And it was mentioned that, UK now we will start looking at something called flex credits. There are 16 flex credits or 20 flex credits that happens for one action. Okay, and this one flex credit, which is sorry, this 20 flex credits for one action, basically it refers to 10 cents. Okay, 10 cents in USD. We'll talk about like the pricing in USD. So it equates to around 10 cents. Let me show that here. But one of the catch that you will see there is like, it says as long as the action that you are executing, and if it's in production, it is 20 flex credits, and if it's in the sandbox, it is 16. And it says that it is 10,000 tokens max per action that you're trying to think, right? So how do I know, how do you know what is the tokens like, that is being consumed when I actually execute one action? Okay, I'll come to that in the next slide. But assuming that that one action is like less than 10,000 tokens, it will consume 10 cents. Okay, if you look at the pricing, how it comes up, just for you to know. And then if it's in the sandbox, it is like 16 is the multiplier, so it will be slightly lesser. Okay, so there are ways that you can calculate this and see. But if it goes beyond 10,000 tokens, so an action has multiple things that happen right behind the scenes. So if there is like multiple calls that happens and then comes back, and then finally, if it is the number of tokens being exchanged is larger than 10,000, then automatically it is considered as 2 times. So it will become the moment it goes to 10,001, it becomes 2 tokens. Okay, sorry, 2 actions billable. Okay, if it becomes 20,001, it becomes 3 actions pricing. So instead of 10 cents, it will become 20 or 30 cents accordingly. Okay. So now, and then the third model that I did not mention is like there is user-based pricing as well. We talked about conversation, we talked about flex credit, and third one is instead of doing these are two, both are consumption-based. The third model is not consumption; it's straightforward like how we used to do. That is a user-based license. Okay, I believe right now it is about $125 per user per month if you want to use, and it says unlimited, but I'm sure there will be some limits set, which is pretty high. So hopefully they should cover whatever the user is able to use in terms of AI, right? So couple of things that you probably need to look at is whenever you're implementing scenarios, always check okay, how much is being consumed, how many actions are there. So I'll show you 2 examples here, where I have 2 cases where I have X number of actions happening. Okay, and then anytime I create, and let's say for this particular, a number of topics got ran, and then there were a number of actions that happened for that particular scenario. So these are how they get charged, right? But then the moment it goes above 10,000, like I said, the multiplier goes higher, so you get more charges. But more number of actions with less than 10,000 doesn't mean that that is always going to be beneficial to you. Okay, so I'm not saying this is always the case. Sometimes that is something you probably need to do, look at okay, do we need to keep it very granular, or do we need to make sure that okay, an action is comprehensive enough that it actually takes care of things. So in this particular case, if I have 8 different actions and they're all being executed, it comes to almost 80 cents, because one per action that I'm executing, I'll get 10 cents for each of those, right? But here I'm consuming almost similar number of tokens, but I'm only using 3 actions. Couple of them go beyond the 10,000, but that means they will get twice, but I end up consuming only 5. Okay, so which means only 50 cents. So imagine now this is getting done by a lot of different or multiple times, in a month. So then the amount that is getting consumed in a year is actually pretty high. If you look at the difference, the 30 cents might seem small, but in the longer run, it actually amounts to a big amount of money, right? So when you design as well, always look at okay, don't simply create actions in a very granular level, because you will end up considering too many flex credits. So there are certain things, instead of creating multiple actions, you can probably have sequential steps inside a flow itself. Okay, so I think there are some best practice videos that have been rolled out by Salesforce as well, some of the webinars recently as well. People say that when you actually try to create instructions and topics, actions, and all that, don't write logic inside instructions and all that. Try to include that in the flow. If you have sequential steps that need to be executed, include that in the flow that can be easily taken care of, and that comes back in a single action, right? So rather than you do something, then you pass it to the next action, it goes like that. So don't try not to get into some of those, is what there's some of the practices that people have mentioned. So I'm not saying that this is something that you will always come across, but just in case you come across some of these things, please keep some of these things in mind. Okay. Um, and that always then comes back to the question of people ask, okay, hey, where can I now find these tokens? You said like, okay, 10,000 tokens, you should not, or like, if you're executing more than 10,000, like, where can I see some of these things? So I don't know how many of you have actually used, so let me try to minimize this a bit. Okay. So I don't know how many of you have actually gone. So in Einstein, sorry, inside in the setup for Einstein, there is an area where you have to enable under Einstein generative AI, you have to enable the data cloud reports. Okay, so if you enable the feedback logging and monitoring and all that, the whatever you do on the agents and all that will actually get logged into data cloud. Okay, so you have to give permission. In production sandbox, definitely this may get charged as well. So please check all those. Like in the dev orgs and all, right now you can do it for free, and in the partner orgs as well. But in production, when you're enabling some of these, actually there is statements written there that some of these actually get charged. So please check that. But at least in sandboxes, I would enable it because that is something where you actually look at, okay, hey, how much is being consumed when I'm actually creating a particular use case. And that's always important. Like, we are all learning as, these things are coming out. You don't want to deploy something into production that is not, that is causing a lot of tokens to be executed, and then, it's consuming a lot of money, right? So you want to optimize as much as you can. So if you come into data cloud, there is a section for reports. Under reports, there is a Salesforce, out of the box, there's something called as total token usage. And the objects that they use is GenAI gateway request and GenAI gateway response. By default, they will give you these three fields: feature, timestamp, it is grouped, and then total tokens. But you can go ahead and edit the report and then add the additional fields that you want. Okay, so I've added, app type, model, the prompt, template, session ID, and all that. Okay, so you can play around with the report. You can take a look at it, and then you can see okay, what that means. So this one is I've filtered it by today's timestamp. I ran it a couple of times. So one thing you need to keep in mind is when, let's say, you run something in an agent or a prompt, and then you want to see the tokens being consumed, you have to wait at least maybe at max an hour, because the job runs every 1 hour. Sometimes you may not see it instantaneously. That particular, whatever you ran, the data might not reflect here. So you might have to wait up to an hour or so. And then when you come and refresh, you will see the latest data coming up over here. Okay. So few of these things I actually looked at. Okay, this was one when I executed an agent. Let me show you. I have an internal agent, and I have few accounts. But what I did is I asked them to summarize an account called Omega Technologies. It summarized it for me. But then you will see on the top here, this is the session ID, the planner ID, and then it went through a bunch of topics and actions over here. But it doesn't show you the tokens here, right? It doesn't show you the time taken and everything. So now if I want to validate that, I can go back to the thing here, and it says a total of 14,000 tokens got executed for that single execution. Okay, that is what I did. And it shows me the specific, the session ID. I can validate that session ID as well. If I go here, this session ID will match that one. So I didn't run anything else at that time. So this is the only one. And then it will actually show me the bot version ID also. So if I go into the Agentforce here, this particular version, if I go and right click, I will be able to see that particular ID over there for that one, for that agent. Okay, so this way you can actually track okay, how many tokens are being consumed for some of the actions that you take. Okay, now something else that I also tried is so whenever you create prompts, I'm sure many of you work with prompt builder. So one of the things that I asked when I did the session at TDX to some of the folks who came attended as well, inside prompt builder, when you create the prompt template, there are different models that are available. So I've asked people okay, which model did you choose, or you just go by what Salesforce give assigns by default? Have you tried the others? I mean, what is the difference? Many people said no, they've never tried it. So that's something that I would look at as well. Some are multi-model, and some are basic models that doesn't support other than text. So you need to know what each model does, which one is optimal, which one is best for your use case, because it differs. Okay, so I did the same prompt. I asked it to use the account summary template. Okay, and by default one is GPT for Omni, but then I replicated that, and I said okay, I wanted in GPT 4.1, and you can keep seeing the response changing. Okay, so slightly it will change. Then I changed it to Anthropic Claude Sonnet 4, and the final one was Gemini 2.5. Okay, all four the responses are slightly different. The GPT-4 Omni and 4.1 are almost similar. Okay, but you will see the smallest response that came back from Gemini was from Gemini. This is this one. But then I would think then, oh, hey, this is very small, so the size should be less, right? You'll be very surprised to see the token results here. Okay, so the 4.0 and the 4.1 consumed around 2,500 tokens. The Anthropic one was 3,300, and the Gemini one was 4,400. Okay, so these also you should know. Like, okay, which one consumes more tokens? Which one should I use for my use case? Which one giving better output for me that I want to show? Things like that. So you have to play around with some of these things. Don't go by whatever is available default. But once you get a hang of like, okay, which model suits us best for some of our use cases, you can stick to that, like, as long as that works for you. Okay. So just giving some input on some things that you should take a look at, and how do you do experimentation when you actually work with agents in terms of tokens, monitoring and all that. So the monitoring and optimizing part is always very important. Like, don't go by like, okay, yeah, we did everything, we deployed, done, I can move on to the next project. No, that's not it. You always need to make sure like, whatever you actually have created is sustainable, making sure you're doing the right tests, and it is optimized in terms, because whatever you're now deploying is not like the old automation what we used to work with. Every single thing that gets generated through AI is a cost. Okay, so you have to make sure like it is not wasting money from the customer perspective. Okay, I'll take a pause here. Do we have any questions? Wait, let me go back here. Okay.
Yeah, we have the other questions.
Tons of questions. Huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you want to take them now?
If it is related to whatever we have covered, I can quickly take, because after this, I think I'm moving into MCP. Yeah, I can take now before I move into MCP then.
Okay, so the first question is from Chandra. He is asking, can you explain how tokens are utilized within AI models? So I think that is the next slide that you are going to explain, right?
Yeah, so no, it's kind of like a generic thing. Okay, so tokens are let me ask you. Everybody knows how electricity works at their homes. Okay, so you usually get electricity bill. I'm assuming, unless you are very powerful somewhere, like that you don't get bills at all. Okay, so how do they actually measure like what is your electricity consumption? What do they actually look at?
The meter consumption.
So what is inside that meter that they look at?
The units.
Right? So that is the basic level that they actually look at, right? So those units is basically what they look at, how many units you consumed, and then there is you have seen there is multipliers for that. Like they'll say, okay, first X number of units is this much pricing. Okay, next one is a subsequent slab, like so that and depends on which category you fall under. If you are a household, it is a different category. If it's a small business or a medium business, it's a different category. So they have slabs for each of those, right? Similarly, you can consider this also, like so the basic the metering or the unit of like how you measure what you consume from AI models is basically tokens. Okay, and that is very simple. Even outside of Salesforce, if you go to any model LLM that you interact with, okay, you should see how that when you give a request, when it's actually generating. I think in ChatGPT and all, you can see it at the end. You will, if you have enabled it, it probably should show that, okay, how many tokens are generated, and what is the speed at which it generates, also tokens per second. Okay, so that also is some of the metrics that people look at. How fast is this particular model? But primarily tokens are that behind the scenes, and then like when you use ChatGPT, Claude, and all that, when you're using the UI interface, you are paying only a lump sum amount per month if you do for the pro version. But if you're using from an API perspective, like if you're really into like development or programming, or like if you want to use the actual model for your own apps and stuff like that, that is when you see this token consumption. Okay, so there it is not like a lump sum amount. There they actually charge you by metering. Like, so basically they'll say for every 1,000 or 100,000 or 1 million tokens that you consume, this is the amount of money that we'll charge you, X number of dollars. Like, so if you look at any of those, DeepSeek and OpenAI, Anthropic, all those things. Like, you can see that on the billing perspective, you should go and see. You click on it. You don't have to subscribe to it, but you can go and check the pricing online. You will see the API area. You will see billing, like now pricing. It will show you X number of tokens or millions of tokens, and you will see request token, response tokens also. That means how much you send and how much you get back. Okay, so that is what they look at. Okay, how much can they actually consume and provide the output? How much they will charge you for that? And that is what we always. That's why always behind the scenes, even when Salesforce is actually using some of these models that you saw, even if they're using behind the scenes, there is like they are using OpenAI or one of the other models. They have to end up paying for it. Okay, so and for that, if Salesforce is paying to them, definitely that charge of that will actually hit the customers as well, right? So we will definitely. That's why we say, anytime you use anything to do with AI, either a generative or an agentic thing, if something is being an AI model is being hit, you will end up consuming charges for that. Okay, I hope that answered the token question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the next one is like, how can we calculate? Sorry, I have received the info provided rate limit exceeded when I was doing continuous testing of the agent that was built. Any limit applied? I waited for some time and another tried the same at once. It worked.
Yeah, there could be limits that they apply. That is again tied to the LLM being used. So Salesforce will definitely govern the limits. They will have limits. For example, in ChatGPT and other models, you must have seen depending on the version that you're using. And if you are using the dev version or the sandbox version, again you'll be more restricted, because you're actually using a live LLM behind the scenes, right? So it's not like you're using a dummy version or so. So if it's a free version that you're using, you will definitely get limitations that that they will not allow you to go beyond that, because you're not paying for it, right? So that will be limited. Like once you get into actual production, if you keep using it, you will get charged for everything that you use as well. So keep that in mind.
Awesome. Okay, so the last question from Abhishek. Hello, sir. Do we have those 10K tokens to each or dev, UAT, and SIT? We have 10K
Okay.
for each sandboxes.
Okay, so maybe I wasn't clear. So it is not that you get 10K tokens. Okay, what I meant is you get to purchase, and you don't see it in tokens. Okay, what Salesforce shows you is either conversations or they show you flex credits. Okay, behind the scenes is what the tokens is. Okay, so it says when you consume one action, okay, or when you execute one action, it will hit 20 flex credits if you're doing it in production, and 20 flex credits is equal to 10 cents. Okay, now when a customer or when you go and buy a set of licenses and things like that, they will give you X number of flex credits. For example, I think 100,000 flex credits cost you $500. Okay, so that's how that I think that's 10 cents or something. There is some things that comes up based on that. So you get a lump sum of flex credits, but then these flex credits is kind of your deposit. Okay, the moment you start executing AI, depending upon the actions that you execute, it will keep on getting deducted from that pool. Okay, now how much flex credits should get depleted from that pool will depend on the number of actions you executed, and if each action is is using less than 10,000 tokens, it is only going to take out 20 at a time per action. But if your action that you executed did more than 10,000, so let's say it did 14,000 tokens got executed in one single action, it will hit, instead of hitting 20 flex credits, it will hit 40 flex credits, means twice. Okay, so that's why we say you have to do the monitoring behind the scenes to ensure that you know what is being consumed. Okay, I hope that answered the question, Abhishek.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all. Sir. We can go on.
Okay, cool. And if you still have questions, that's okay. You can keep adding. We can take it later. No worries. I'll get into this interesting topic of MCP, and I know we covered MCP slightly yesterday, but I want to get a feeling from the crowd. Be very very open. Do you really understand what MCP does? Just wanted to understand that from the people. So that I want to know that at what level should I actually explain this. I'll anyway go through it, but just want to make sure that people understand or not. Okay, a few of the people who know what MCP is. Okay, then I can ask questions on MCP. Okay, great. Hopefully we'll get some good answers. Okay, I'll anyway try to explain a little bit, because I'm pretty sure that few of you may be not very confident on if I go into some of these things. So there's something known as function calling when initial LLMs came into play. When you had LLM applications and all that. Okay, so before MCP world, I'll try to explain what happens, and some of you may be familiar with this. Okay, but look at it from this perspective, that I have an application. Okay, let's say it's a Python application or some programming application that I've written which interacts with an LLM. Okay, OpenAI maybe for that perspective. So I have libraries that I can do. So inside that, I have written a code as well, maybe a function or a tool. Inside that, I can write a Python code, to say that if I need to check the weather, I can go ahead and I have an API key for this weather application outside, and from that Python code, I can call the weather API, passing it parameters, and it will give me the response. So this much I have implemented and kept, meaning I have this application, I have the LLM, and I have the function call to the weather API as well. Okay. Now the user is coming and asking the question in through that application that I built. It's kind of like a chat GPT application that I created. Okay, and it's asking, hey, what is the weather for San Francisco or SFO, right? So when the application gets the query, okay, most of the time what happens is it will send this query, okay, along with any of the functions it has within that application, saying that, hey, LLM, this is what the user is asking, and these are the tools or functions that I have with me that you can use if you want. Okay, so that is basically what function calling does. Okay, and then the LLM knows, okay, does the application have these things? Okay, in order to get the weather for Francisco, oh, it has a weather API that it can invoke and get the answer. Great. Okay, so in that case, it will actually tell the application, okay, now that you have the weather API, why don't you go and ask about the weather for San Francisco and return that to me? He will validate that, and then it will send the output back to the user. So this is basically what function calling in the earlier days was actually meant. So you might come across this term, some of you may not, but just to give you an idea difference between, because you need to understand this when you get into MCP. Okay, and this is something that you have to actually implement within the application. So that is what I'm saying. It's not something that comes by default, the function calls or tools. So, and many of you have done that. We'll get into the Salesforce world after this when I explain and compare this. Now, when I come to MCP, okay, slightly different, similar approach. Okay, what happens is your actual application is still there. They've called it MCP client here, but just ignore that. Just think of it as the actual application. But now what has happened is it has a module for MCP as well, where it says, hey, instead of calling the weather API directly through an API call, okay, I have a server for MCP, that has been implemented that will invoke the API, weather API, these things, and get me the details for that. And an instance of calling that MCP server, now I have actually have that module within the application that we have talked about earlier. Okay. Still, it goes to the LLM. It goes and tells the LLM everything, and that interaction is the same. So now, when the query comes in, okay, what happens is the MCP, the application that is there with the MCP module, and any other functions that you may have, if it is all the functions also is there, that everything, the tools, the MCP tools, the existing functions, everything will actually get sent to the LLM. Okay. And now the MCP, what the good thing about MCP is it's kind of like a decentralized kind of thing, where it actually says, hey, whatever, how do I say, the abilities or capabilities that I'm building out in this MCP server, I will make sure I keep updating that to the MCP client module here. Okay. So let's say in this function call that I initially told, I'd only created the code to get the weather of US cities. Okay, so if I give a city in India, it will not work for you because I have not implemented that particular API for that, right? So that's a different API. I probably have to implement that. So let's say the MCP server initially when it got launched, okay, it has the support for getting you the weather for US cities. Okay, so at that particular time, what it will say is the MCP client says okay, I have the tools here. You can call the MCP server. It is supporting US cities. That goes to the LLM. And because now I asked SFO, it will work as usual. It will go say, okay, why don't you call the MCP server, get the data, okay, and then automatically it will say, okay, can I go ahead and get that the extra approval process is there, and then that output is brought back. Now imagine if this is being now scaled up, saying that okay, now I've added additional functionality in the MCP server for other cities outside of US as well. India has been added. Okay, maybe I added some cities in Europe, all those things. So this is being done at the MCP server level. Okay, they are actually now adding new functionality at the MCP server level. This automatically will get updated into the client module here, saying that, hey, the MCP server is now enabled. It's kind of like a release, like, when you were using Salesforce, you get quarterly releases, right? So the MCP server will now update the client saying, by the way, now we have support for additional cities as well. So next time when I come and ask, if I give a non-US city, like, the MCP client will actually tell the LLM, hey, now I have support for additional cities also. So in this particular case, you will see that I did not go and create, new functionality, or create additional, how do I say, like, code and things like that to implement that new API for, like, getting, additional cities and things when things need to be changed. That is being taken care of by a separate server application. And one good thing about, decentralizing this is now this can be reused across multiple applications where this MCP client can be deployed. So this is how that architecture looks like. Okay, so I hope people understand the fundamentals between, like, okay, what function calling is in the traditional way when we use LLMs versus now coming into an MCP architecture. Any questions on this? Okay, we ask. Okay, cool. Okay, sorry. Now I wanted to ask, like, in terms of Salesforce. Okay, you guys are all working with agents and stuff like that. Can you tell me what is the application layer that we talked about, where, like, that you can compare from when you look at this particular architecture? What is the application layer that we use in Agentforce? I mean, if you can read out the answers, like, or maybe let me.
Yeah, I'm checking it. Like no one has answered it.
Okay, I hope people understood. Basically, what I'm asking is this application layer here. Okay, if I want to do, like, the one that interacts with the LLM. Okay, what is that application layer that users interact with by sending queries? If I implement an agent, what is that application layer? Plan tracer. Okay, Einstein trust.
Instant trust layer. The answers we have not.
Okay, not the answer that I'm looking for. It's very simple answer only. Like, okay, what chatbot? What is that chatbot that we use? I'm not asking the LLM. I'm asking the application layer. LLM comes after that. Where do you actually send the user query to, or where do you build the agent?
Prompt, reasoning engine, agent, plus.
Everybody said every name that they can think of in AI, people have put here. Okay. Okay.
Experience
Yeah.
side.
So agent, basically you are actually creating an agent builder. Okay. So and what is the LLM that we use that agents interact with?
It's in a bridge between your AI agent and your real
Yeah,
work, the performance side.
seeing that, but I'm asking. Okay, some are saying OpenAI. Okay. What is the Salesforce name for that LLM that they use for agents? You already few people already answered that earlier. Like, so Atlas. Okay, good. Okay, so think of it from that perspective. So I'll go to the next slide so to give you an idea. So look at it this way. Okay, the application that you build out, like, from an agent perspective is within the agent builder. You have the planner service, like, that actually will take care of, like, things. And now the functions and tools that you probably have written inside that are your topics and actions. Like, so what does the agent need to do? Things like that. And your LLM, which is your brain, is the Atlas reasoning engine. Okay. Now I'm comparing the non-MCP world here. Okay, MCP has not come in yet, but think of it this way. Okay, so if a query comes in, the agent, like, we will go through this like last day and tell the Atlas thing that, hey, I received a query and these are the topics and actions that we have. What do we need to do with that? So it'll actually go through all that and then say, okay, the user is asking certain things. And this particular case, maybe, like, we are looking at a RAG implementation. I hope people know what RAG is. So then it says, okay, why don't we go get the details from our RAG that we have stored and kept? Okay, so it will go figure out which template to call. Okay, go get the data from the retrievers where the search index has all been updated from Amazon S3, everything has been stored over there, get that response back. It'll go back, send that to the Atlas reasoning engine, it will validate those things and send the output back to the user. Okay, so this is typically similar to how that function calling happens. It's just happening, right? Now if you go one step further, for in this particular case, I have implemented things through our topics and actions. Then, which what I'm saying is how you have to see okay, whatever you have done already is how that LLM is using, the application is sending it to the LLM and the LLM is reasoning with that and telling what to use when. Okay, let's say I add MCP. Okay, so if an MCP comes in, then this now acts as your MCP client. Okay, and here let's say I added an MCP server, and I don't know how many of you have worked with Brave. So Brave is basically a search engine. It does web searches. Okay, so if there is an MCP server for Brave that is there, what I want to do is maybe I have implemented an MCP action which automatically I can go and add an MCP server here. Okay, and the connection to the MCP server, saying that hey, now the agent also has, besides the topics and actions you have created, there is an MCP action that says that you can utilize Brave also if you want to search the web and get some results. Okay, so now when I do a query, I can send it back to the Atlas reasoning engine. Okay, and in my query I might say oh, get me all updated details about a particular company, some insights and all that. So if I use only RAG, it is static data, meaning it has been, whatever I have fed is there, but it is as of a specific date, right? Based on when the document was created. I may not get updated data from the web, if I use only RAG. But now if I've implemented the Brave server also, as an MCP here, the LLM now knows, saying that, okay, hey, you have an updated thing, you have your topics actions, which will get data from RAG, but you can also get web data from the internet through Brave. So all this. So it probably will tell, okay, go ahead and use the RAG as well as the MCP to get live data and use both of that. And then we can give a mixed total insights back to the user. So you can see both you can actually execute accordingly. So that is the difference that you can see. And this particular functionality is actually, I don't know if you have seen the demo, through Agent Exchange, you can actually add some of the MCP servers that are being added in through Salesforce. I don't know if it's GA yet, but as and when they come in, you can create custom MCP servers as well. Okay, that is also possible. So there is option here. I'll show you here. So you can create custom MCP servers on Heroku. So Heroku is actually becoming very important, right now, where you can actually add servers on different languages, especially Python or Node.js and all. You can actually create code and then you can host it on Heroku and then have that as an MCP module. There is specific notation to specify that as that's an MCP, and then within the Agentforce, you have to designate that as, and you'll be able to say that this is an MCP agent that is hosted on, or a server that is hosted on Heroku, and you can now call that in the action over here inside Agentforce. Okay, so that feature is coming up. The other way around is also possible. For example, it is the Agentforce remote server is actually being implemented. So now whatever we talked about earlier is this particular area where from within Agentforce, if I want to call an external third-party MCP server, okay, I can now bring that as an action into Salesforce, through the MCP module, as an MCP action is what I was saying, right? But what about the other way? What about if I want to expose Salesforce data through an MCP server specifically for Salesforce? That is also possible, right? So the Agentforce remote MCP server will be hosted on Heroku, through which external clients can actually, or applications and clients, they can now automatically, come and invoke this one and then try to get the data from Salesforce. So whatever you expose here, they will be able to get, and automatically if there's a client here, the module for this one, it will get updated with any new feature that you release for Agentforce remote server. Okay, so it will actually get embedded. So this is look at it and this is an inbound one. So when external applications are coming to Salesforce MCP server and trying to get Salesforce data back for their applications. Okay, and so it's a two-way thing that you have to look at it from an MCP standpoint. Okay. I know this was quite a bit of things, so but at least I hope I was able to explain the overall architecture and how it comes into play, because this is becoming very important. A to A is different. A to A is from agent to agent, like I said, multi-agent kind of thing that is in the works. I hope that will come in the near future. Hopefully in Dreamforce you'll see a bunch of announcements like Lokesh mentioned. But just letting you know, MuleSoft also has MCP support. I don't know if Priya, if you see, she's covering this one, but primarily, if you have APIs that you have built in MuleSoft, and if you want to expose that as an MCP server wrapper around it, that is now being supported as well. So you don't have to directly go and start calling APIs into MuleSoft and start getting those implementations. Now you can have that entire thing wrapped around and have an MCP server for that, and you can now bring that into your agent as well. So a lot of support for MCP is now being actually implemented directly into Agentforce. So, and that it is essential that you know this, because it is going to be part and parcel of your actual Agentforce implementations in the near future. Okay. That's primarily what I had from my side. So in terms of content, so I'll take a pause here. I'll take any questions that you have, and then we'll get a break before we get Priya in for the MuleSoft session. Any questions people have?
Thank you so much, Shibu. I see that there is no question after that. So yeah, there's no other questions, Shibu sir.
Okay. Yeah, Lokesh, yesterday we had the session for Salesforce DX with MCP. So what's his name? Rohit had actually covered that. He has shown the teams, but yeah, it was a little technical. But hopefully, people who are working on coding development, especially if they're using VS Code or one of the IDs and Salesforce DX, especially if you are into some of these agentic tools, you should definitely check that out. The moment you have it, if you start using some of these, it'll be awesome. So I would always say, whatever comes in, whatever features is being released, stay up to date, of what is happening. So say one good thing about Salesforce is it is always all on the leading edge of making sure whatever is up in the AI industry, they try to adopt that into their suite, right? So it's not they will wait 1 year to bring in something that has been launched. So the good thing is you will start seeing some of these new things that is coming in AI. So the more flexible you are in terms of at least learning it, you may not use it in your actual project, but at least being aware of these things is really beneficial. You never know when you'll need it, when you have a customer implementation or even you're talking to somebody on this one. Okay. Does Salesforce have its own LLM? Yes. So they have their reasoning engine, and behind the scenes, it's called Atlas. Behind the scenes, their own LLMs are CodeGen, and I don't know if it's CFM or some. There are a couple of other names that they use for that as well. So there is Salesforce has a XLAM. So they have a few that they have actually launched. You can even see it on Hugging Face. If you go and search for some of the LLMs that Salesforce has, you should be able to see some of those as well. There is also in things behind the scenes, they actually work with OpenAI and all as well. So that's a different part of it. They have their own private connections with OpenAI and few others in terms of where we're using prompt and all. But the core engine that they will use, is they call it Atlas, and behind the scenes they will have their own LLMs that they use as well. Okay. Any other questions before we take the break? And I hope this was useful. I know it's slightly outside of your regular certification topics, but I always want to get people to learn something more than what you usually get from Trailhead. So hopefully it piqued your interest. MCP is definitely an important topic, so please make sure you start learning some of these things. They're all available on the net itself. You can see. I don't know how many of you have actually subscribed to the Salesforce Developer YouTube channel. If you have not, please do so. They have code live sessions, and they also have videos that they publish almost every week. So some of these things actually come there. They've got great content over the last few weeks, last few months that they've been launching. So some of these good areas that you will see will all be launched there. Videos from TDX. TDX sessions are also live on Salesforce Plus. So if you want to see some of those sessions that have actually been taken, you should probably look at those as well. So these are small time, if you are able to spend maybe around 20-30 minutes a day, you should probably go and start looking at some of these areas as well. And if you're partners, There is definitely partner enablement webinars that some of the teams from the Agentforce have done. Like maybe Gajendra and team have all been doing that last few months. So there they actually give really good insights into some of the deeper topics with product managers. So they actually tell you some of the best practices, what are the do's and don'ts and stuff like that. So if you are working for a partner company, please make sure you attend some of those, because not everything we can actually cover in the regular community sessions as well. So please do check these out. Thank you.
Cool. So thank you so much, Shivu sir. We will take a break of 5 minutes and then we will get started with Priya. Okay. So Priya will be taking us through the MuleSoft part where she will be explaining of how you can explore more about Agentforce through MuleSoft. So it will be another 15 to 20 minutes she will take up, and then we will move ahead with the next part where you want you to check what things are there after putting up so much hard work. So yeah, so let me put up a timer of 5 minutes and then we'll get started right after 5 minutes. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for being there. We are going to start for the next session. It will be for 15 to 20 minutes as conveyed before. And post that, we will announce the winners for this particular series. So stay tuned till the end and let's get started with Priya. So, Priya, please share your
Um,
screen.
yeah, hi. So I'm audible properly, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, let me share my screen then. Yeah, let me know if you are able to see it properly.
Mm, I'm not able to see the screen. Yeah, I can see now.
Okay, okay. Then shall we started?
Yes, over to you.
Okay, okay, yeah. So yeah, hi everyone. So welcome back and thank you for joining this session. Okay. So yeah, after a detailed outline session on Agent Force, let's now look at orchestrating agent workflow with Mulesoft Salesforce integration. Okay, so now like you all must be wondering like why are we talking about Mulesoft or Salesforce integration here, right? So yeah, let's take a moment to understand like why Agent Force, which is basically agent within Salesforce, needs integration. Okay, so before that, first thing it is important to understand like where does Agent Force fits in. Okay, so Agent Force is just not for one T, right? So you can see that it can be used at a lot of places, right? So you can see here we can use agent in customer service because agent resolves issues faster, right? Similarly, you can use it in sales because they help in creating sales rep for you. Then you can use it in marketing because they personalize the outreach. Similarly, you can also use it in commerce because they keep the fulfillment moving, isn't it? So you can think of many use cases like that, but the question here is that how they are able to do that. So yeah, think about this typical enterprise setup where we are basically using a lot of application, right? So we also know the fact that AI is as good as more data it gets, isn't it? So for agents to act on real time data and take actions, basically access to this underlying third party system is very critical. Okay, so imagine like an agent is trying to help a customer without knowing their full history, or maybe fetching order details without visibility into the order system. So it does not make any sense, right? So this is where like Mulesoft picture comes in, and it unlocks basically data from anywhere, like even from hard to reach application or end system, or maybe your legacy systems, right? And it brings that all the data which agent is looking for right then and there. Okay, so that's how like MuleSoft unleash the full potential of AI by giving the ability, just not to see the data but also access it. Okay, now let's talk about Blocker and the challenges which we see when we try to integrate your agent with MuleSoft. Okay, so despite we know the full potential of agents, right? Often they don't know like how to leverage API, because in MuleSoft we generally develop API and give those API basically to the agent, right? But they don't know how to basically leverage those API, and they also sometimes need guidance, and they also need control access to the backend system, and at the end like managing lots of agent and basically scaling them is also a big challenge here. So this is where like API catalog comes in, and it gives platform to MuleSoft API in Salesforce so that we can easily manage and turn them into action for Agentforce to use. Okay, so now let's understand like how do they work. Okay, so Agent Force is powered by these three fundamental components which you are basically seeing on the screen. So first is topic, instruction, and then action. Okay, so topic is basically what part. Okay, so what do you want these agents to do or what needs to be done, right? And then we have instruction, which is basically how part. So how should the agent act once the agent knows what needs to be done. Okay, and then we have actions. So actions are the actual API operation or the system capabilities that do the work. Okay, so all of these sits inside a structured system, okay, that makes the agent work smartly. And these three are very important from the MuleSoft perspective as well, because whenever we are creating an API, we have to provide all this information so that our agents can access it. Okay, now, these are the four steps which basically tells like how we can integrate MuleSoft with Agentforce. Okay, So first step is to design your API specification. Okay, so this is like the phase where we basically provide all the metadata needed for Agentforce to work autonomously. Okay, sorry. Okay, so this is the design phase which I was talking about. So here, if you will look at the picture, you will see that we are also providing topic related information. We are providing, classification. We are providing scope, instruction, and everything, so that your agent can work smartly and can understand like which topic to use. Okay, then we have a connect phase. So this is the second phase. Okay, and here we basically develop our API, deploy our API to the runtime, and expose this API as an agent consumable. Okay, then third phase is a consume phase. So in this phase we actually supercharge agent capabilities by assigning topic to the agent. Okay, and then we have a last phase which is manage. Okay, so this is where like we basically monitor our agent and API performance. Okay, so these are the 4 steps which we have to follow whenever we are trying to integrate our Mulesoft API with Salesforce. Okay, so now let's look all those 4s into action by seeing a demo. Okay, so I'll move to the demo, but before that, like, can anyone tell me how many of you have already know like how to use Mulesoft, or have some done already done some hands-on on it? Anyone here who have explored MuleSoft side?
Yes, I've explored it not to the very large extent, but yes, I have explored it from the basic point of views.
Okay, no problem. I this detailed page, okay, where you can just follow step by step things. Okay, and you can also integrate any API, basically MuleSoft API, with the Salesforce. Okay, so I will just share this link so that if you get time you can also do some hands-on on it. Okay, and just to let you know the prerequisite if you are trying to integrate. Okay, so first prerequisite is that you should have an Anypoint Platform account, so you can create a trial account which is valid for 30 days. Okay, and you can explore things around it. Then second prerequisite is you should have a Salesforce dev org. If you do not have it, you can of course launch your from the Trello you can launch your demo org. So I'm also using a demo org for that. Third prerequisite is you should have your Anypoint Studio or your ACB, which is installed in Visual Studio Code for the development. Okay, so all these 3 are the prerequisite to get started with it. Okay, so I have already like installed everything, and just I'm going to show you step by step what needs to be done for that. Okay, so if you look at the documentation which I have shared with you all, so if the first step is to prepare the Anypoint user. Okay, so it is very important that first you give all the appropriate access. Okay, so minimum requirement for integration is these. Okay, so in the Exchange you should have viewer and creator. In the runtime you should have delete, read, create, and in the Design Center you should have Design Center developer access. So similarly, if you come here and if you come to access management, then you will see like for my user, okay, that is Giridhar M, I have already added all the appropriate user which is mentioned there. So these are the users I have added access. Take care. Okay, then next step is enable Einstein and enable Agentforce. So this is very important component. Like if you have already done Agentforce, explored Agentforce, so you have to turn on these 2 toggles. So for that you can just come here and search Einstein setup, and then you can basically turn on this toggle. Similarly, you can come here and search for Agentforce agents, and you can turn these 2 toggles. Okay, so this is the second step which you have to do. Okay, once that is done, third step is like you have to link your Anypoint and Salesforce off. So this is very important, right? Because how Salesforce knows what all are the API which are exposed, we will not know until and unless we will basically create the link between Anypoint and Salesforce org. Okay, so earlier what we used to do, we used to create name, credential, external services, all those things in the Salesforce org, right? But now these are all gone, and now what you have to do is like we have one option which is present. So again, you have to come to the setup and you have to search here Anypoint setup. Anypoint platform setup. Okay, so this is a new option which has been added since after the launch of API catalog. Okay, so API catalog basically helps bringing all the MuleSoft related APIs to directly to the Salesforce, so that we can just go ahead and add those action into the Agentforce and use it. Okay, so if you will look at the view connection info, I've already added my Anypoint platform details to the Salesforce org. But how can you do that? So it is still having some steps to do. So what you have to do, the moment first you will open, this uh, Anypoint platform and view connection info, you will find this pop-up, right, where your Salesforce tenant key will be present. So what you have to do, you just have to copy this tenant ID, you have to come to the access management, and you have to come to Salesforce tab. Okay, so this is again a new tab added. And what you have to do is you have to just click on add Salesforce add org and then paste that tenant key. So the moment you'll paste that tenant key, it will give you a MuleSoft org, okay, which you have to again paste it here in the Salesforce. So the moment you will add those two details, your linking will be done, and you just have to turn on these toggles. Okay, so if you come and see here, I have enabled all the toggled. Okay, these are just the permission which you have to enable so that you can publish your API to the API catalog. Okay, so once the setup is done, what is the next step? So next step is building a MuleSoft app. So this is where a MuleSoft developer roles comes in. Okay, here we are going to do step-by-step thing. Okay, so for any MuleSoft development, there are 3 steps which we have to do. Okay, so this is the ACP platform, which is IDE, where you can basically develop your MuleSoft API. Okay, so the moment you will see ACP, it is asking you first design an API, then implement an API, and then develop an integration. Okay, so what you have to do here is first you have to design an API. So how can you design an API? So just click on it and you will find the option. So now a new option which has been released in MuleSoft is that enable this API for agent topic action. So earlier this option was not present. So since after the launch of Agentforce and all these things, now this option is present. So the moment in this way only, basically you can segregate your API, which API you are exposing for agent and which API you are not. So if you're not choosing, then it will be not available in the Salesforce API catalog. Okay, so I have just clicked it because my main goal is to integrate MuleSoft with Agentforce, and then you have to provide few details. So let me come back here and see what are the details which we have to fill. Okay, so you just have to provide the project name, you have to provide this is a REST API, and then you have to choose OS. So earlier we used to create our API specification with RAML, but now with the release of Agentforce, now we have to follow the standard of designing our API specification with OS. Okay, and then we have to provide the business group, and then we have to create the project. So now the moment you will design an API specification, you will see some agent topic. Okay, so this is the API specification. You can just copy paste this API specification in designing API, and the moment you will create it, you will see this pop-up will come. Okay, and what it is telling that, you will see, like as I was telling, in design phase we add all the metadata related information, right? So here if you see, the topic name is there, classification, scope, instruction, all those details I have already added in my design API specification itself. Now I have published this, okay, to the exchange. So exchange is the place where we basically maintain everything. Okay, so you will see here I have now published API to the exchange. Then next step is building a Mule API specification, that is implementing Mule API. So this is what I have implemented. So if I just come here and if you see, this is the flow which I have developed. And if I just show you the get operation, what is happening here is that I have just added a hard-coded response. Okay, so the moment you will give the reservation ID, this is what it will return back as a response. So this is just a dummy application which I have created for the demo purpose. So the moment you are developing an API, you have to deploy your API to the runtime manager. Okay, so these are the components which are, like, you will be familiar if you will explore a little bit about the MuleSoft. Okay, so these are the fundamentals. So before deploying any API to the runtime, first you have to add those API to the API instances. Okay, so this is how you can do step-by-step API instance creation, and it will give you a API instance ID, which you again have to add in your MuleSoft flow. right? So these are step by step which you have to do if you are developing your new API. And then you, in that way, you can basically deploy your API to the runtime manager. And you also have to provide your org client ID and client secret for that as well. Okay, so let me show you. If you come here and if you look at the exchange, so I've already done these steps because it actually takes a lot of time, deploying application and adding all those API instances. So if you look at my API specification, so this is what I have published. Okay, and if you look at it, it is having two methods currently available. One is to creating a reservation, and other one is fetching the reservation details. Okay, and if I will show you the code, so this is what my API specification is in the design center. So these are the metadata related information, and this is OS specification having post method and get method. Okay, and if I show you API manager, so here basically I have added my API. So this is important because until unless you are not creating API managers, you will not be able to apply policies on top of it. Okay, um, so Coral Cloud Reservation, this is my API manager which I have created. This is the instance ID and this is the consumer endpoint. So how you will get this consumer endpoint, basically a URL for your service. So the moment you will deploy the application to the runtime manager, so here if you see, I have already deployed my API to the runtime manager. So yeah, this is my application. And if you see, this is the application URL which they give, Cloud Hub give basically the moment it is deployed. So let me just copy this URL and show you how my API is actually working. So for that reason, what you have to do, you have to provide the endpoint details. So from where you will get it. So if you look at here, let me post, like let me do a get call, and this is my endpoint. So let me copy it. So just remove this and pass this reservation ID. So the moment you will hit the service, you are able to see that it is giving this response related to reservation. Okay, so this is what my API does. It gives the reservation related details. Now we are done with this step. Okay, building a Mulesoft API is done. Let's move to the third step, which is explore the API catalog. So now your API is ready, but now how you will make this API available to the Salesforce, right? So now if you come to setup and click on API catalog, so now this is the option available in Salesforce org, which allows seamless integration of Salesforce with Agentforce. So at first, like the moment you will open it, you will see start sync option. Okay, so in that way, like whatever API which you have published to the exchange which are consumable by Agentforce, those API only will be visible here. So how it will understand which all API to show here? So in the exchange, let me show you the tags which it generates. Okay, so if you come here and see, these are the two tags which our design specification adds, that is SF API catalog and SF API topic. Because of this only, those API will be visible in the API catalog. Okay, so now I have already synced it, and you can see uh, that these are the three APIs which are available for me. Okay, now what you have to do, you can see now you have to go inside the API and you have to activate action. Okay, so these are the options which you have to do. So you have to click on activate action, and then you have to activate your operation as well. Okay, so it might happen that you just want to use get, so you can activate only the get operation. In this way you can control your operation as well. Okay, so you have to just activate it. Then what you have to do is enable access to the connection. Now you have to manage user assignment, that which all are the user which can access this. Okay, so you can add a user, so you can give admin user access. Okay, so all these are step by step thing which you have to do. Okay, so I will just show you Coral Cloud reservation. Okay, and you will see that I have already enabled everything here. Okay, if you see, already assigned and activated is showing. Okay, now comes the final step, which is connect your Agentforce with Mulesoft app. So now let me show you like how like easy it is basically, to connect any API to the Agentforce. Okay, so if you remember, like when we were developing our MuleSoft API specification, we had added all those topic related information, right? So if you see that I had added my topic name, I had added my scope, instruction, and everything. Okay, now what you have to do is you just have to come here, you have to search here agents. Okay, the moment you have activated it, the final step will be coming to the agent force agents. Okay, then I'm going to use default agent, that is Einstein Copilot. And then what you have to do here is add that topic. Okay, so first open in builder. Now let me show you like how we can add it. So let me deactivate it first and let me remove it. Okay, so what you have to do, you just have to come in the Agentforce builder, you have to click on new and add from the asset library, because those are already present in the API catalog, right? So just click on it, and if you remember my topic name, that is hotel room reservation. So I'm just going to search here hotel room reservation, just click on it and finish. And that's all. Like, you just have to add that topic. And if I just click on the topic, you can see all those API name, classification, scopes are already filled in. And then if you also come to the action, so if you remember, I had two action, one is creating and other is retrieving. So those two operations are also present. Now you just have to come here and just click on activate, and now you're all set to use agents to call our Mule API. So let me add a prompt here. Okay, how can we test it? Just copy this prompt and just put it here. Okay, so can you provide the reservation detail for the reservation ID? This. Okay, and if you see now, our agent force is actually able to access our Mule API, and it has responded back with all those details. Okay, so this is how internally it works, and it basically accesses your Mule API, and these are the set of action which it has performed. Okay, so yeah, it's that pretty simple. Once your API is ready, you can just add that topic and just you can go ahead and use it. Okay, so I hope this gives a clear idea like how we can use Mulesoft API with Agentforce, and you can just use the step-by-step guide, very clearly mentioned, just to get started with it. And then the part where you are building a Mulesoft app, here you can basically connect to any third-party system to fetch and update those details, and then you're all set. Okay, so that's all about Salesforce integration with Mulesoft. Yeah, so you can, I have already shared the guide link which you can follow, and you can also just register to this Anypoint platform and do the sign up, and in that way you can basically access the Anypoint Mulesoft account as well. So yeah, with that I'm done. So I'm just stopping my presentation.
That was great, Priya. With a short span, you covered everything and you were well
Yeah.
prepared with the demo. So,
Yeah, because it actually takes a lot of time whenever we do here on the go. So I just kept it all prepared so that it does not consume much time. So I think I can see there are some questions already. I
yeah,
will just take those. So what is the difference between RAML and OS? So these are actually a standard basically with which you can specify your API. So what it is recommended that if you're developing an API, right, before that, better design an API. So in that way, like when you are designing an API, you can basically mock the service and you can actually understand like what is the API behavior. So what is the request going, what is the response coming in, right? So in that way it becomes very easy with API specification. Okay, I will just show you. If you look at this API specification, you looking at this, basically you can understand, right? So in the, if I show you the get, right, in the get, it is what it is expecting. So it is expecting reservation ID as a parameter, and in the response, if you see, what all are the response it is going to provide. So in that way, like you can see, reservation ID, customer ID, room type, all those information are coming as a response. So just looking at it, you can basically feel it how your API is going to behave basically. So these are just a standard. So earlier, like RAML, we were using it, but RAML is mainly for MuleSoft only. So those API specification is only can be used within MuleSoft. Okay, but now OS is actually widely accepted by all the systems. Okay, so now we have come up with a new standard. So OAS, we are going to make use of it. Okay, so these are just a standard. Can you use API specification for collaboration? Can we get the link for the same? Can we use API specification? Yeah, so this link itself has all the details, right? So once you will publish it, right? If you will look at building a MuleSoft, so this is the OS. You just have to copy it and publish it to the exchange. Okay. Does the and other important thing is in the OS, you also have to make our API confirmant, which I forgot to tell. So if you see, like it is asking API to be confirmed now. So that means all the standards should be followed. Okay. So if I come down and just see, now we have to click on this play button basically, and make sure that your API is following all the standard. Okay. Then only it will allow you to publish the API to the exchange. You cannot use any naming convention. The standard is pretty well already defined. So you just have to follow that. Okay. Now, other question is, what does it seems like we can orchestrate easily through MuleSoft? Will it be possible to use the same agent for multiple orgs? Yeah, we can use the same agent for multiple orgs. Okay, so it based on your prompt, it will basically understand which basically action to call, and then accordingly it will work as expected. Okay, any better tool prepare the schema? So you can use, if you can use Swagger, you can use OS. So these are open source actually. So you can use Swagger. I have used Swagger actually, right? Swagger.io, where you can basically test your API specification. You can check. So if you see, you can just sign up and use this tool as well. Okay. And you can mock and test the service as well. You can use this Swagger.io. Okay. Yeah. So I think if you have any more question, then you can reach out to me on LinkedIn as well. And yeah, over to you, Aman.
Thank you so much, Priya, for this wonderful session. I hope people
Thank
enjoyed it a lot.
you. Yeah. Thank you
Great.
so much. But what is the best way? Okay. To get started. So there are already a lot of courses available in MuleSoft, for MuleSoft in YouTube. Also, you can follow Chinna Reddy video, which is available in Udemy. That is, I think, the best course for any new joiners. Okay, if you want to get started with MuleSoft, I can just give you the name, Chinna Reddy. So you can follow his Udemy course. Yeah, yeah, fine. And you can also join Mulesoft Meetup, where we also explore about Mulesoft latest offering and capabilities.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Priya, once again. So I'll stop the recording.